Michel Thomas is one of the most famous language learning methods in the world. It has baffled celebrities, helped diplomats, and turned even the most struggling students into legendary language learners. So how does it all work? Let's find out. Now, in order to fully understand the Michel Thomas method, we need to take a quick look at Michel Thomas, the man. Michel Thomas was born in 1914 to a Jewish family in Poland, which, as we all know, wasn't exactly the calmest period of European history, especially not for Michel. At an early age, he was sent from Poland to live with his family in Germany and escape anti-Semitism. Then Hitler came along. So Michel was forced to flee once again, and spent the following years going back and forth between Austria and France. In this time, he studied psychology, collaborated with the French resistance, and used his language skills to help the CC bring down the Nazis. Not bad. And between studying psychology, being interrogated by Nazis, and speaking several languages himself, Michel had developed a real interest for the human mind. How it learned, how it absorbed information, and how it reacted to certain situations. So what did Michel decide to do? Move to Beverly Hills, open up a language centre, and develop a language learning method defined by both his studies and personal experiences. But why is all this important? Because it had a direct impact on the method. So for a Michel Thomas course, we're going to need a set of students, a Michel Thomas teacher, and a relaxing environment for them to work in. So over the course of about a week, the teacher introduces the pupils to new words, concepts and structures, focused primarily on teaching the most useful language and verbs. The days of recording are then condensed into about 8 hours of content and put into courses for us to buy. Okay. But why is this different to any other language course? Well, this is the part where we talk about the magic. We don't see this on the audio, but basically everything about the environment is relaxing. The room, the teacher, the voice, everything. And because the method revolves 100% around speaking and listening, that means there are no notes, no homework, and most importantly, no stress. So the teacher takes full responsibility for the students' learning, and instead of forcing them to remember, uses memory hooks to try and aid them along the way.
The word for far away, is далеко, далеко. Sounds like dull echo. Dull echo, dull echo, dull echo. When imagine yourself being far away in the field and you can hear dull echo of the thunder. Yes, далеко.
In other words, if a student forgets a word, it's the teacher's fault. You can see why I like this method, right? But I think for me the coolest thing about the method is the way in which you're guided through the language without you realising it. You start off with a few basic words, these words then somehow turn into sentences, and by the end you're having a basic conversation. And essentially the mechanics behind that is that Michel is building up the technical aspects of the language for you, the architect, so that afterwards you add all your words, your expressions, and essentially all the fun stuff, the decorator.